Okay, so I wanted to quickly go over the quiz that we just took, or maybe took just a little bit ago, to make sure that everybody's clear on what the answers are since we don't have time. So this first section was just assigning the oxidation numbers. So zinc, it's a metal here by itself, oxidation number 0. Zinc as an ion, you'll notice this is AQ as opposed to a solid, and it's got the charge up here, so its oxidation number is the charge. Number 3, we've got lithium, cobalt, and oxygen. Lithium is a group 1 metal, so I can automatically assign it as a +1. Oxygen, I'm going to assume, is a -2, and then I need to figure out the cobalt. So the whole entire thing is no charge, so 0 equals the 1 from lithium plus the x from cobalt that I don't know plus 2 times my -2. I do all the algebra there, and I will find that cobalt is a +3. And in number 4, I've got hydrogen here. It's a +1. Hydrogen here is a +1. That oxygen is a -2, and the carbon is what I'm going to have to find. So again, the whole thing is 0. I have 3 +1s from the hydrogen, plus the x that I don't know, doesn't matter what order I do this in, -2 from the oxygen plus another 1 from that hydrogen. So combining this, I'm going to get 3 plus x minus 1, solve all of that, and I'm going to find that the carbon there is -2. So you had to have everything correct on 3 and 4 to get that point. So on to the next one. For these, I again just asked you to assign oxidation numbers and then tell me what was oxidized and what was reduced. So here I've got bromine. It's an element by itself as a liquid. That's got oxidation number of 0. Potassium as a solid, oxidation number of 0. Potassium in a compound is a group 1, so it's going to be a +1 automatically. And since it's paired with the bromine, that means it's going to be a -1. So I've got a pair between my bromines there and my potassiums there. So bromine went from a 0 down to a -1. So the oxidation number was reduced and bromine was reduced. Potassium went from 0 up to a +1, so it was oxidized. All right, and the next one, I do have aluminum, that should have been a solid, oops, here by itself, which is a 0, and barium as a solid over here is a 0. Barium is a group 2 metal, so it's going to have an oxidation number of +2. Aluminum is always going to be a +3. So the oxygens are -2s. And you'll notice that these nitrogens, they're going to be the same because they're both in nitrate. So I can figure that out quickly. So 0 is 2 from the barium, plus that would be a 2x from the nitrogen, because that's going to be a subscript or a 2 multiplying in, plus 6 times my -2. -2 from the oxygen, but 2 times 3 for that 6 there. So solving for all of this, 0 equals 2x minus 10, and x is going to equal +5. So that's going to be a +5 there. It's also a nitrate, so that's a +5 there. Okay, so my changes were on barium there and on aluminum there. So aluminum went from 0 up to the +3, so it was oxidized, and my barium went from the +2 down to the 0, and its number was reduced. Okay, the next ones I asked you to balance these and then identify the reaction type, whether or not it was redox, assign oxidation numbers, all that stuff. So first balancing here, I've got 2 carbons, 1 carbon here, so let me put a 2. I have 5 plus another one for 6 hydrogens. So I need to put a 3 there to get that 6. Now, there is an oxygen right here, so that is going to kind of change things up. So I've got 3 oxygens plus 2 times 2 for 4. So I've got 7 oxygens total on the product side. And I've got this one over here. So I only need 6 more. So that's a 3. I know some people started off by doubling this because of that, and if you'd put a 2 here to begin with, you should have then gotten 2, 6, 4, 6. Just be careful about that you don't forget those oxygens. So this is a organic compound reacting with oxygen to make carbon dioxide and water. This is a combustion. And a combustion reaction is always a redox. So we can assign some things easily. The oxygen by itself is 0. This oxygen is a -2. This oxygen is a -2. This hydrogen is a +1. Over here, that's a +1. That's a -2. That's a +1. So I have to figure out that carbon and that carbon. So I've got 2 -2s here, so this carbon is going to have to be a positive, and it's actually going to be a +4, because a +4 is what balances out 2 of the -2s. So this guy over here might be easier to work out, so 0 equals x. Actually, that's, whoops, my bad, it's going to be a 2x, because that's a C2. So 2x plus, I've got 5, 6 times the +1 minus the 2. So combining all of that, 2x, 6, so 2x plus 4, and I work that out, and that's going to be a -2. So I have carbon going from a -2 to a +4. So carbon went from a -2 up to a +4, and it was oxidized. And my oxygen here went from a 0 to a -2, and it didn't matter if you took it to that -2 or that -2. So oxygen went from a 0 down to a -2, and it was reduced. So for this next one, I've got zinc and sodium and chlorine, all these things. So I see I've got a Cl2, so let me put a 2 there. That is going to need a 2 there for those 2 Nas. That gives me 2 OHs, 2 OHs. That's at 1, 2, 1, 2. That's a compound and a compound, making a compound and a compound. So this was a double replacement. And a double replacement is never redox. But to get the points, you still had to assign all the oxidation numbers. So zinc is always a +2. So if that's a +2, that's a +2. This chlorine then, if that's a +2, there's 2 chlorines. So those 2 chlorines together would be a -2, and each one individually would be a -1. Sodium is always a +1 as a group metal. Oxygen -2. Hydrogen +1, that one's done. Same thing here, oxygen -2, hydrogen +1, and that sodium, if it's a +1, chlorine is a -1. So that was that one, and there's nothing oxidized, nothing reduced, so I didn't have to do any labels there. So on the last one, I had to write these reactions out and then do all of the same things. So magnesium metal, Mg, plus zinc sulfate. So to write that formula, those are each a -2 charge, +2 and a -2. Sulfate is on your cheat sheet. So that was a ZnSO4. That is a single replacement reaction, element and a compound. So that's going to make MgSO4, because magnesium also has a charge of 2, and zinc by itself. This doesn't need anything to balance. It's already balanced as it is. So assigning oxidation numbers, this magnesium's a 0, that zinc is a 0. How do I know that? Because they're elements by themselves. Magnesium is a group 2 metal, so it's always a +2. Zinc is one of those that is always also going to be +2. The oxygen is a -2. And then I just need to figure out my sulfur. So if I figure it out here from the magnesium, that's 0 equals a 2 from the magnesium plus x from the sulfur plus 4 from the oxygen times a -2. And if I simplify all of that, that gives me a -8. That's going to be X minus 6. So that makes sulfur a +6 on both sides, +6. So I changed here magnesium and I changed zinc. So my magnesium went from 0 up to +2 and it was oxidized. And zinc went from a +2 down to a 0, so it was reduced. Number 10, elemental sulfur reacts with silver metal. So silver is just Ag. Elemental sulfur, the most common thing on here missed, is not S, it is S8. And when you make a new compound from those two things, silver has a +1 charge, sulfur is a -2, so there should be a number there, and it's Ag2S. Now, why did I put the Ag in front of the S? Because we always put the metal first, non-metal second, every single time. Then to balance this, I would need an 8 in front. 8 times 2 is going to give me 16 over there. So that's a synthesis reaction. Oh, forgot to mark. That's a yes. Clearly that's a redox. Synthesis, this is also a yes to a redox because these are both zeros because they're elements by themselves. Silver is always a +1 and in this instance sulfur is a -2. They basically have the exact same oxidation numbers as their charges. That's not that uncommon in a synthesis reaction. So my silver went from a 0 up to a +1, so it was oxidized, and my sulfur went from a 0 down to the -2, and it was reduced. You did have to have everything correct here, the formula and the balancing with everything else to get the full 8 points on here. So hopefully that answers everybody's questions.